He walked away from his marriage without a second thought, chasing success, leaving behind the woman who once loved him. 8 months later, he's a millionaire with an empty heart and a broken car. Seeking shelter in a quiet diner, he never imagined who'd greet him at his table, his ex-wife, pregnant, tired, and wearing a waitress uniform. What she said next shattered his ego and revealed a truth he couldn't escape. This isn't just a story of regret. It's about redemption, second chances, and a man who finally realizes what he truly lost, and what he's still desperate to regain. They say time heals all wounds, but some moments burn into your soul forever. 8 months ago, Alexander thought he was making the right choice. His career was skyrocketing, his ambition unstoppable, and his marriage crumbling. In his mind, love could wait. Family could wait. But the deals, the clients, the money, they couldn't. He left Elena, his wife, with nothing but silence and heartbreak. What he didn't know was that she was carrying a secret, his child. Now, fate plays its cruel game. Stranded by a broken car and pulled into a quiet diner in Moscow's rainy twilight, Alexander steps inside and is hit by the past like a thunderbolt. There she stands. Not in a designer suit, not with the confident elegance he once admired, but in a simple uniform, hair tied back, and a swelling belly beneath her apron. Her voice trembles. His breath catches. And in that instant, his world begins to crumble. What follows is not just a confrontation, it's a journey. Of guilt. Of realization. Of quiet strength and growing hope. Alexander must face not only Elena's truth, but also the man he used to be, and the man he must now choose to become. This isn't a typical love story. It's a story of loss, resilience, and the rarest kind of redemption, the one you have to earn. Backhand index pointing right. Stay with us to witness a powerful second chance at love, the pain that led to healing, and the rain-soaked diner where everything changed. The rain tapped softly against the windows of the Moscow restaurant White Nights. Outside, the city shimmered under a curtain of drizzle, the streets glistening with reflections of headlights and neon signs. Alexander Petrovich climbed the steps slowly, shaking droplets from his expensive overcoat. He hadn't planned on stopping here. His car had broken down just a block away, and this place was the only warm refuge nearby. Inside, the atmosphere was serene. Wooden tables bathed in the glow of chandelier light, classical music hummed softly from the speakers, and the scent of fresh bread hung in the air. He selected a seat by the window, picked up the menu, and was about to order when he heard a voice that stopped his heart. "Welcome to our restaurant. What can I get for you?" Alexander slowly raised his head, and froze. Standing in front of him, holding a notepad in trembling hands, was Elena, his ex-wife. The woman he had divorced 8 months ago after painful fights and endless blame. She was different now. Her hair, once always styled to perfection, was pulled into a simple ponytail. She wore a white blouse and a waitress apron. But what stunned him most, beneath that apron, she was unmistakably pregnant. Very pregnant. "Elena," he whispered, his voice catching. Her face went pale. Her grip tightened on the notepad. For a moment, they stared at each other, the weight of the past settling between them like a fog. "Hi, Sasha," she said finally, steadying her voice. "I didn't expect to see you here." Alexander stood slowly. His heart pounded like a war drum. 1,000 questions rushed through his mind, but he didn't know where to start. He glanced again at her belly. "Elena, when did this happen?" She looked down, flushed with discomfort. A few nearby diners turned to glance at them, sensing the tension. "Can we talk after my shift?" she asked quietly. "I finish at 9. He nodded and sat down again, his world turned upside down. The next 3 hours passed painfully slow. He ordered dinner, but barely touched it. His eyes stayed fixed on Elena as she moved around the restaurant, serving customers. She walked carefully, one hand often on her lower back. She looked exhausted, but strong. Brave. Resilient. Once, she had owned a design studio. She created interiors for Moscow's elite, drove a luxury car, wore designer clothes. Now, she was working long hours on her feet in a modest diner, pregnant and alone. Guilt gnawed at Alexander. During the divorce, he had been cruel. Focused only on his business, on making money. He accused her of not understanding his ambitions, when all she ever wanted was a family. A child. Real closeness. At 9 p.m., Elena returned, this time in a cardigan, her apron gone. She sat across from him, folding her hands on the table. He noticed her wedding ring was gone. "Tell me everything," he said softly. She took a deep breath. "After the divorce, I lost most of my clients. Turns out many of them only worked with me because of your business connections. I had to shut down the studio. Couldn't afford the rent anymore. But the baby," Alexander's throat tightened. He couldn't bring himself to ask. "He's yours," Elena said quietly. "I found out I was pregnant a week after the divorce. I wanted to tell you, but you had already flown to London for that big deal. And then, I told myself you wouldn't want this baby. We argued so much about having children. I didn't think you'd be happy." He remembered, too well, how he insisted they still had time. How he said a baby would only complicate things. That his business needed his full attention. "Elena, I'm so sorry," he whispered, voice hoarse. "I was a fool. Obsessed with money. I didn't see what we had." She turned to the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. "These past 8 months taught me a lot. I learned I could survive on my own. I'm stronger than I thought. The work is hard, but it's honest. And this baby," she rested a hand on her belly, "he gives me strength. Every single day." "Where do you live?" he asked, almost afraid of the answer. "I rent a one-bedroom flat on the outskirts. It's small but clean. I've already bought the crib, a stroller, clothes, everything he'll need." Pride rang in her voice. Alexander could picture it clearly, Elena alone in that little apartment, preparing to bring their child into the world. The image broke his heart. "I want to help," he said firmly. "I want to be a father. I want to be with you again." She looked at him sadly. "Sasha, it's not that easy. You hurt me. I spent months picking up the pieces of myself. I don't know if I can risk that again." "I've changed," he said quickly. "These months without you, they made me realize that money doesn't keep you warm at night. Success means nothing without someone to share it with." She studied him. "And your business? The endless travel? You used to say family was a burden." "I sold half of the company," he said. "Now I work less. I stay home more. I finally understand what I really want, to be a husband and a father, not just a paycheck." They sat in silence. The rain had slowed. Stars began to pierce the night sky. "I need time," she said finally. "This is too big to rush." "Of course," he nodded. "But let me help, with your apartment, the baby. No pressure. Just help." She agreed. From that day on, Alexander returned to the restaurant every evening, not for food, but to walk Elena home after her shift. He bought her a reliable car. Helped her move into a spacious 2-bedroom apartment near the park. Bit by bit, he earned back her trust. They walked together. Talked. Remembered the best parts of their past. Slowly, the walls between them began to fall. When Elena went into labor, it was Alexander who rushed her to the hospital and waited through the night. At dawn, when he held their newborn son, a tiny, red-faced, crying bundle, he wept with joy. "What should we name him?" Elena asked, exhausted but glowing. "Mikhail," he said, smiling. "After my grandfather. He always told me that family is the most important thing in life." A month later, Elena agreed to marry Alexander again. It was a quiet ceremony. A simple white dress, a classic suit, a few close friends, and their infant son sleeping in his grandmother's arms. "I promise," Alexander said, sliding the ring onto her finger, "to be the best husband and father I can be." "And I promise," she replied through tears, "to give us a second chance." 1 year later. They live in a peaceful home just outside the city. Elena is back to doing design work, from home, on her own terms. Alexander rarely travels now, choosing instead to spend his evenings with his wife and son. Sometimes, they talk about that rainy night at White Nights. The night a broken car led to an unexpected reunion, and a new beginning. Now they both know, true love can survive anything, if you're willing to fight for it. And little Mikhail is growing up in a home filled with the love and understanding his parents had to learn the hard way. And that, perhaps, is their greatest victory. Broken heart, would you forgive him? Tell us in the comments. Thumbs up, like, memo, comment, and bell subscribe for more true-to-life stories that touch the heart. Movie camera, share this video with someone who believes in second chances, or needs one.